if you want to break a bond, let's say between carbon and hydrogen, that's at a certain strength required. But if deuterium is attached to the carbon, you need 7 to 10 times the strength to
Wow.
remove that deuteron. So this deuterium atom. So it becomes a very different kind of a molecule. And in some places, we want that, right? So we want deuterium. It has essential functions. For instance, we want that in connective tissue. We want that in bone and in skin to provide strength. But we don't want it in moving proteins. If it's too high in moving proteins, it disrupts these processes.
Hey everyone, welcome to Ultra Life Today. I have a special guest that got connected to me through someone else I know that has a lot of street cred, a guy named Logan Duvall. Some of you have seen the interviews we've done with him. McGee and Me Market there or Me and McGee Market there in Arkansas, which has kind of become a destination spot. I want to welcome Dr. Petra Davelaar. We're going to talk about something that you may have never heard of, and I hadn't until a few weeks ago, called deutonomics today. But Petra, welcome to Ultra Life Today. Thanks for being here. Thanks for connecting through our mutual relationship with Logan. Also, you getting on Doctor Talks and looking at the interview with Adam Payne. That's brilliant. We're having we've had this explosion. We had like 1 million people view one of our shorts just like within the last 2 weeks. So
Amazing.
It's kind of blowing up and people are sharing. There's a lot of people that are going to be watching that don't even know what a naturopathic doctor is. And I'm always super interested in every doctor I interview. There seems to be some pivotal moment in their life that led them on the path of pursuing health, either for themselves or a loved one, and then, hey, I need to do this and change people's lives. Tell us a little bit about naturopathy, going to Bastyr, and then why you're doing what you do. And then we'll get into deuteronomics in a bit, okay?
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Yes. So for me, there was also a pivotal moment. And for me, it was being a mom. So I had the privilege of that experience 25 years ago.
Amazing.
It's been amazing. And having that responsibility of raising this perfect little girl, it became essential for me to figure out how best to do that. And I just explored and never stopped. And, any visit to a pediatrician office will just trigger for most of us going, okay, why are we doing what we're doing here? Can we do it better? What should we add? All of those things. So that's really what happened. And, that became a love for food and nutrition and understanding what we put in our bodies, what the effects were. I made whole charts. I compared everyone's diets, what were the differences, and then I realized, okay, nutrition is interesting, but all of the educational programs were not teaching what I wanted to know.
Wow.
And I thought, okay, that's not going to work for me. So then I looked at medical programs, and then I realized that a lot of their practice would have to be guided by certain medical boards that I was most likely not going to adhere to. So that I thought, that's out. So then I stumbled upon naturopathy, and then I thought, okay, yeah, that's it. That's completely what I need to do. And so I had never gone to college, so I had to start from scratch.
Amazing.
And I sped through the first, 4 years of undergrad, and then immediately went into Bastyr, did that for 4 years, and I graduated in 2016. So it was a multiple, like I've had other careers previously, but this was what I started.
So there was a life before naturopathy, and
Yes,
pregnancy
yes.
was the pivotal moment where you go,
Yeah.
wait a minute, I want to
Yeah.
guide this life the very best I can and do the best for it. And I don't have a clue how to do that. But
That's right.
you sound like you're an individual that is passionate and convicted, and it sounds like you got so much deeper than most people I know that watch a YouTube video here or there and read a couple of books, and then they start telling everybody how they should eat and what supplements they should take. You really went on a journey. And I think people don't understand that naturopathy is, when you graduate as a naturopath from a prestigious school like Bastyr, you've got 8+ years under your belt. That's pretty intensive, right?
It is. And then it's also fairly general in all areas. And I would say that's one of the shortcomings, but it's not unlike, regular medical school, right? When they complete that, they often go on to a 3-year residency that specializes in their, area of expertise that they're trying to become an expert in. So that's the one shortfall with that. So I always knew that I had to add lots of other pieces to it. And I also knew that I had to really choose an area of something that I can be an expert in. And I happened to find that in deuteronomics. So that was very special for me.
So was there a time when you were still in school at Bastyr that the light bulb went off, or have you always been that person that has a tendency to be a trendsetter and look into something that maybe other people aren't really seeing? I'm curious about that because, and you call it deuteronomics. I need to make sure I do the long O vowel sound there instead of the short O sound.
I think I'm just somebody that just is a detective, and I'm always looking to find all the information, and I want to know the other side of the story. And I don't know that I call it a trendsetter, but I want to make sure that we are using all available data to make decisions that guide people's health and their life. And so I've never stopped. I do this day and night, and I love it. And it's my passion. Yeah. So when I came across it in 2014, first I heard about the word deuterium. The term deuteronomics was not coined until 2019 by Dr. Laszlo G. Boros, who at that time was a professor at UCLA. He's since retired, but that is where the name comes from. But in 2014, I first heard about it. And as I said, I was still in medical school at that time, and I was unable to make time to dive into that. But then in 2018, when my mother was diagnosed with colon rectal cancer, I stopped in my tracks, and I just knew, okay, we are missing something huge in cancer care and approach. And I got to go back to the drawing board and help somehow, have her stick around. I had lost my dad when I was 22 from glioblastoma. So I just thought not again. So I went to work, and again, once I get going, I just bow down, stick with it day and night, write it out, try to teach it to someone else, explain it so that I really truly try to grasp it. And I'm still doing that today. Every day there's new amazing information coming out.
So was Mom actually willing when she comes up at this pivotal point in her life? So did she listen, though, ultimately, to you?
She listened to
I know
a
how
lot.
tough that is within the family dynamic. We were talking on another podcast I recorded earlier today about, I think there's a quote from the Bible where Jesus says, the prophet is without honor in his hometown. And I, as a dad, sometimes feel like I am the voice crying in the wilderness to my family. It's like, please listen to what I'm saying. We can have such a better quality of life if you will eat this way, think this way, exercise this way. So, but did Mom ultimately end up listening to you, or was that did she go a standard of care route, and then also maybe you got to plant a few seeds along the way?
Well, we did a combination, of course. She listened to some of it, most of it actually. She was great. I can't say otherwise. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So when I think of something called deuterium, and I'm so glad I actually know so little about deuteronomics, because I think one of our conversations previously before we booked the interview was, I've heard you talk science with my friend Logan, and I mean, talk about the ability to glaze Josh Bellew's eyes over really fast because you're bantying around this nomenclature that I don't even know the definitions of words. So I'm having to look them up, and hit pause and like, what did they mean by that? So one of the things that I kind of said to you is, I'm hopeful that in this idea of what you've discovered that's become a passion for you, we can bring this down to some practicality as we go through these segments that can help people kind of unravel this mystery? Because I know the moment somebody hears something that says deuteronomics, half our audience is going to go, cool, I want to know what that is. And half our people are going to go,
Next.
what is that?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
explain to us what it is. What even got you interested? You had a touch point while you were at Pasteur with this UCLA guy coining that term. And I think you said 2019 is when it actually began to be called that. So that's a relatively short time ago. Tell me about your journey into that and what is deuteronomics? Because when I hear the word deuterium, I think it's some radioactive isotope somewhere that is literally just going to be the death of everybody. And they lock it up and we're never going to be exposed to something like that. And there's a completely different story here, isn't there?
Yes, there absolutely is. So yeah, let's try and bring it down and stop me if I use terms that
No
you
worries.
want me to explain.
I thank you for allowing that.
Okay. So if we go to what most people might be familiar with is the periodic table, and that
Right.
has all the elements that make up our world. And what people maybe not know is that almost, I think every element has another form of it. It's what's what they call an isotope. And that isotope will differ just slightly because it has a different number of neutrons. Now, if we look at hydrogen, so water is H2O, two hydrogens, one
Right.
oxygen, and there's two isotopes of hydrogen. One of them is indeed radioactive, tritium, but we don't need to talk about it because
Okay.
it's too rare. The only one we will talk about is the stable isotope of hydrogen. That's called deuterium. Now, it's
Okay.
very unusual that an isotope gets its own name. So
Right.
why did that happen? Because the change in weight is 100% of a difference. So if we look at carbon, for instance, carbon, there's C is C12 normally, but there's C13 and C14. But difference between C12 and C13 is only 8% in weight. But in between hydrogen and deuterium, it's 100% in weight. And it also, the size of the nucleus is twice the size.
Wow.
So that it makes it different as well. So because of that, if a hydrogen, when it loses its charge, so a hydrogen is just has a proton and an electron. And if it has a neutron added to it, it's a deuteron,
Okay.
a deuterium atom.
Okay.
Now, if the electron leaves the hydrogen, it becomes a proton. Yeah, it has a positive charge. And the same can happen with deuterium, and then you have a deuteron. So if a deuterium atom or a deuteron is tied to a protein or to water or anything anywhere in your body, it changes the properties of that particular molecule. Because if you want to break a bond, let's say between carbon and hydrogen, that's at a certain strength required. But if deuterium is attached to the carbon, you need 7 to 10 times the strength to
Wow.
remove that deuteron. So this deuterium atom. So it becomes a very different kind of a molecule. And in some places, we want that, right? So we want deuterium. It has essential functions. For instance, we want that in connective tissue. We want that in bone and in skin to provide strength. But we don't want it in moving proteins. If it's too high in moving proteins, it disrupts these processes that need to flow.
And so these would primarily be organ systems within the body where it could be deposited that is not a beneficial thing.
Yeah, not just organs, but it actually goes onto a submolecular level.
Wow.
And so that means within the cell, within the cytoplasm, within the organelles. And then the greatest issue becomes when it enters the mitochondria. That's where it does the most damage if we have too much of it. And that ultimately causes mitochondrial dysfunction, which then causes this cascade of reactions backing up of all sorts of in between metabolites, and that causes destruction of the function of mitochondria.
So as we move into this next segment, I'm going to kind of set it up right now because there's this unseen realm that all of us deal with, right? I mean, that's a strawberry and it tastes great. I love it. And we have really no idea what it's depositing in our body that could be
Right.
good or bad based on whether it was grown in dirt or whether it was grown in soil, right? With
Yeah.
active ecosystem and microbes and all kinds of enzymes and minerals and antioxidants there. So I'm just finding myself thinking, how in the world do we get exposed to deuterium? So as we go into this next segment, and I want people to know how they can reach out to you. And you primarily these days work in a really beautiful setting like the one I see behind you, right? Now,
Yeah.
as a doctor, because I've got different doctors that I interview that carry their certifications within certain states where they can see people, but then they also are able to do consulting globally for individuals. Is that kind of how it works with you as well?
Yeah, I am licensed in the state of California,
Okay.
and that comes with a certain scope in this state.
Right.
But indeed, I can consult in other states, and I also in Europe, and other places for that matter. So I have clients from Australia and Indonesia. They're all over.
Nice,
Yeah,
nice. Oh, I
yeah.
love this. In this unseen realm of biological processes in our body, Petra, how does one even know that I've been in contact with or I have an out of balance? Because deuterium is a part of our life, right?
Right.
It's just like so many people don't even understand. There's a trace mineral called gold. And people are like, wait a minute, I would never put gold in my body. Well, you unknowingly put a lot of things in your body that can be really good for you. But how does one become out of balance in deuterium? And what are some of the signs we look for when that's happening? And what are some of the potential pitfalls of being out of balance as it relates to maybe excess deuterium levels in the body?
So I think that 85% of all chronic disease, as we know, is due to mitochondrial dysfunction.
Okay.
And if you have any of the above, autoimmune disorder, cardiovascular disease, cancer, you're fatigued, you have neurocognitive decline, I know I'm naming really, big disease,
That's okay.
shapes, but that's what this is. Diabetes, you name it. There's always, in all of these disorders, there is absolutely a component, the foundation of it lays in a excess of deuterium in mitochondria. There's
So
no doubt.
excessive deuterium, obviously, if it's affecting mitochondria, you're really talking about something that is evidently triggering the inflammatory cascade in the body in a pretty profound way, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
And I know
And
every doctor that I speak with on the podcast or that Adam and I talk with, I will ask them either on camera or off because, one of our big things is we've figured out a way to get things into the body, certain ingredients that, and Adam's background is in studying the inflammatory cascade in the body. So he's really adept in that. And I can't tell you how many times doctors have said to me, 92 to 99% of everything that we undergo that's a deterioration of health is tied to this unique relationship your body has to healthy versus unhealthy inflammation. And so I want to understand how this excess deuterium, how it gets out of balance, and then what are some of the things that we could look for as early warning signs? I mean, you really kind of painted this picture of autoimmune disease and almost anything that can happen where a person's health begins to decline. Dr. Petra Davelaar is saying, yeah, I want to look at what's going on with deuterium in their body. And that's really fascinating to me, that to me there can be such a razor sharp focus on this one thing. So tell me how to look for it, how I get too much of it, and how I can begin to address it earlier in my life rather than later.
yeah. So the way to look for it currently, the best way to do it in the US is you get a saliva sample and you test how high that is in your saliva.
Wow.
How do we get it? We get it from generally from all the food and the water we consume.
Okay.
And there is a concentration of deuterium in everything. So in all water, in all food. And you can think about the concentration would differ depending on the latitude you are, the altitude you are, the seasonal aspect plays a role. In the center of a continent or at the water side, all of these factors play a role in the concentration. But generally, so if you think of seawater, that's 155.7 exactly ppm currently, parts per million. That's how we look at this. So
Right.
that means 155.7 of the hydrogens are deuterium in a
Okay.
million.
Okay.
Yeah, so you think that's so little. What are you talking about? This makes a
Right.
difference. Yes. So if we look in our bodies, because as you may have heard, 70% of our body is made up of water.
Right.
We have hydrogen, so much hydrogen in us, and the percentage or the concentration of it in our bodies determines how well we function. And if you compare it, for instance, to glucose, we have 5 times as much deuterium as circulating glucose if your level is normal and not diabetic. Calcium, we have way more deuterium. I think it's 6 times. Magnesium, 12 times. So we just don't measure deuterium, but we have it.
Right.
And we have it in a great abundance, even though the concentration is this low. So if you think about water and hydration, and everyone's being told, oh, drink lots of water with abundance, those recommendations are not really based or founded on physiological processes or biochemistry for that matter.
Interesting.
And here's why. Most people are not aware of the fact that we make our own water. We produce our own, what we call metabolic water. And the quality and the quantity of that metabolic water is determined by the water you drink, the food you consume, the light you are under,
Nice.
the sleep you have, the exercise you do, the way you breathe. So many aspects play a role in how you regulate deuterium in your body. And that's important to implement and be aware of so that you can avoid getting to these disease states and just live optimally.
You're introducing this idea that a lot of people have never heard of, and it's kind of new to me as well, which is why I'm so fascinated. You make your own water, and you mentioned this term, metabolic water. And I'm so fascinated by that, but I want to push pause there before we go there, because you mentioned a saliva test that is a diagnostic. Who pioneered that diagnostic? How long has that type of test been available to practitioners like yourself? And is that something that someone does can do in their own home? Obviously, you doing a lot of consulting through Zoom and other mediums like this to reach your audience and the people that are your patients. How simple is it to do this diagnostic, and who came up with that? Who was the brilliant person that said, we really need to be measuring levels of deuterium in the body because it's a foundational problem that's triggering all kinds of problems in the mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell? I'm fascinated by a little bit of a journey into the past there to bring us up to today.
Yeah, so this is a very important question. Gábor Somlyai, who is a Hungarian scientist, in 1993 started publishing his first paper on deuterium and its effects in cell division.
Wow.
And so he has published many papers since, and I think in 2012 established a company called Preventa, which makes deuterium depleted water.
Oh, wow.
And he then at some point started to use testing for clients. And so I started using that in 2018. And at that time, we were testing both saliva and breath samples.
Okay.
And you could also do urine for that matter.
Okay.
And then that was available in the US for us to be shipped to Hungary, do it there. Is no longer happening. That stopped. But currently, the company Light Water Scientific is offering the testing in the US. And so
Brilliant.
they do just the saliva test. So you can just go to their website, Lightwater, drinklightwater.com, I think it is.
Okay.
And you can order the test and you can test your saliva, but you can also test your drinking water, the water that you are currently consuming, or any water that you think is great water, you think tastes great. You may want to check out the deuterium content before you use it. Yeah.
So my mind's going in a million different directions right now as it relates to thinking about all the different filtration systems of water that are out there and all that. And so because you specialize in this, I'm sure we can learn a lot from you. But you mentioned deuterium depleted water as an actual product that someone can get that's spurred off the research of this Hungarian researcher, right, that you mentioned. I'm scared to ask now, do reverse osmosis filters and do certain filtration systems out there actually pull deuterium out of the water, or do some of them completely miss it?
Let me just first say that there was another company called Clarivia in Romania. That was the first company that produced deuterium depleted water.
Okay.
And in fact, most of the research has been done on their water.
Okay. Okay.
So there's really now three companies that I know, I am aware of, make excellent quality water.
Oh, wow.
No filtration of any kind that's available to us currently is possible to separate deuterium from the water we drink. So
Wow.
not reverse osmosis, although that's a great filtration method. It won't do it. It makes no difference. I know some people are saying, oh, because of course the properties of the water changes if there's higher deuterium in it, and deuterium freezes at 4 degrees Celsius rather than 0. So that tends to freeze first. So people have been placing bowls of water in the freezer, taking the top off, hoping that they can reduce the deuterium, but it's not enough. It makes a teeny little difference, but not enough to be at all therapeutically or even wellness water quality.
So you have a patient and because this is something that has really you've keyed in on, because everything you've learned about deuterium lets you know it's a major culprit that most of us have never heard of. So I love this. You get a test back from someone, they've got an excess level of deuterium. I'm assuming, like most doctors, because everybody wants their magic pill and their quick fix and what they can do right away to become healthy tomorrow. And we know it's a journey. And so just everybody listening, fasten your seatbelts, begin to do the next right thing that you can do, take baby steps and do things. But do you immediately just look at someone's diet as the foundational thing when someone has excess levels of deuterium? Are you quickly able to say, keep a food diary for me for 7 days. We'll get back together in a week from now and I'll be able to get a lot of deuterium out of your diet. Does that happen ever?
I don't generally ask those because people don't like making them, but
Gotcha.
we go and discuss food intake, absolutely.
Okay.
And I think aside from water, food is the other place deuterium comes in, right? It's a very important to realize that the deuterium content is very different whether we're looking at fats, natural fats, and proteins, again, animal proteins that were raised in their authentic habitats and were allowed to be outside. And then green vegetables, and I'm now giving you them in the order of lowest content of deuterium, right? So fat is lowest, then we have animal proteins, then we have green vegetables, then we're going to hit probably around 150 at this point, which is the fruits and the grains. And then the more processed the food is, the more deuterium it will have.
Wow.
And that goes up. And then you have at some point So coconut water that everybody thinks is so healthy is actually really high because the coconut puts the deuterium in the water and the
Oh,
fat is
wow.
low. So
You're going to
just
be
things to think
destroying
about.
all kinds of people's habits
I
by
know.
doing
So
this. And,
sorry.
no, it's really quite okay because
I mean,
we're not the kind of people, hopefully we're not, that listen to this podcast and listen to people like you that are wanting to just like think that we're going to change the world by hiding under our bed covers. We do need to know these things. And I love emerging ideas and technologies like this that can really uncover a major culprit in the area of us being healthy. I'm going to want to get into some things related to different types of maybe disease conditions you've seen in the next segment, and how deuterium actually affects them, and maybe even some case studies or things you've done with patients to be able to change. Because I think one of the reasons I went to food first, Petra, is that I know most people initially are going to go, wow, I've got to rethink water all over again. And now I'm going to have to buy deuterium depleted water because it's not readily available. So we'll get into all those kinds of things on the next segment. If you want to reach out to Dr. Petra Davelaar, you can do so. She sees people from all over the world through her naturopathic practice and has this unique insight into the world of deuteronomics, the role of deuterium in your health. You can reach out and touch base with her. drpetrad.com. That's DRPETRAD.com. I'm Josh Bellew. This is my new friend, Dr. Petra Davelaar, Ultra Life Today. You like what we're doing? Like, subscribe, share. See you in a bit.